Hello dear friends. Welcome back to the channel. Here, we don't just improve English, we build the confidence to actually speak it. Let me ask you something honestly. When you are alone in your room, can you speak English? You can, right? You try sentences. You form thoughts. You even imagine conversations. But the moment someone looks at you and says, "Say it in English," your mind goes blank. Suddenly, your heart starts beating faster. Your throat feels dry. Simple words disappear. And then you tell yourself, "I'm bad at English." But what if I told you? You are not bad at English. You are just afraid of being judged. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to explain might completely change how you see yourself. Most people think fluency is about vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. They think if they memorize more words, read more books, or watch more English videos, one day they will magically become confident. But here's the uncomfortable truth. There are people who know less grammar than you, and still speak confidently. And there are people who score 90 in English exams, but cannot speak in public. So what's the difference? It's not knowledge. It's emotional safety. Your brain is not designed to make perfect sentences. Your brain is designed to protect you from embarrassment. And when you feel judged, your brain chooses silence over risk. That's why this is not a language problem. This is a fear problem. And until we understand this, nothing changes. The real reason you freeze when speaking. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. You do not struggle with English when you are alone. When you are in your room, practicing quietly, you can form sentences. You can think in English. Sometimes you even surprise yourself by how clearly you can express an idea. You watch English videos and understand most of what is being said. You read captions and follow conversations without much difficulty. In those private moments, you do not feel completely incapable. In fact, you feel hopeful. You think that maybe with a little more practice you will finally become fluent. But the moment someone looks at you and says, "Speak in English," something changes inside you. Your chest tightens. Your hands feel slightly restless. Your mind suddenly feels blank. Words that were available just seconds ago disappear, as if they were never there. And in that uncomfortable silence, you quickly conclude that you are bad at English. But what is really happening in that moment is not a lack of vocabulary or intelligence. It is a shift in attention from expression to protection. When you are alone, your focus is on sharing your idea. When someone is watching, your focus shifts to protecting your image. You stop thinking about what you want to say and start thinking about how you will be judged. You wonder if your pronunciation sounds strange. You question whether your grammar is correct. You imagine someone noticing your mistake and silently laughing about it later. This internal pressure builds within seconds and creates tension in your body and confusion in your mind. Fluency requires relaxation because relaxed thinking allows ideas to flow naturally. Fear does the opposite. Fear tightens your muscles, speeds up your heartbeat, and reduces your mental clarity. Your brain moves into survival mode rather than communication mode. That is why even simple words feel difficult to recall. It is not that you do not know them. It is that anxiety temporarily blocks access to them. What makes this even more frustrating is that after the conversation ends, all the sentences come back to you. You replay the moment in your head and think of the perfect response you could have given. Suddenly your mind becomes clear again. You realize that you actually knew what to say. But the opportunity is gone. This creates regret, and that regret slowly turns into self-doubt. You begin to believe that something is wrong with you. You start labeling yourself as someone who is not confident, someone who cannot speak fluently, someone who is always behind others. And the more you repeat this belief, the more your brain accepts it as truth. The problem is no longer just fear in a moment. It becomes part of your identity. Over time, this pattern repeats itself again and again. You hesitate, you stay silent, and then you criticize yourself for staying silent. Each silent moment becomes evidence in your mind that you are weak in English. You compare yourself to people who speak quickly and confidently and assume they are more talented or more intelligent. But most of the time, they are simply less afraid of being judged. They allow themselves to make mistakes publicly. They do not treat every conversation like a test. They see speaking as practice, not performance. Meanwhile, you are trying to be perfect before you even begin. And perfection is heavy. It puts pressure on every word you try to say. That pressure kills spontaneity. And without spontaneity, there can be no natural fluency. There is something very important you need to understand here. Your brain is designed to protect you from social rejection because, historically, being rejected by a group meant danger. Even today, your mind reacts to embarrassment as if it is a real threat. So when you imagine someone judging your English, your nervous system responds as if you are in danger. This reaction is automatic. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that your brain is trying to keep you safe. But the problem is that growth requires small risks. If you always choose safety over expression, you remain stuck. The brain learns from experience. If every time you feel fear you choose silence, your brain learns that silence is the safe option. But if you speak despite the fear and nothing terrible happens, your brain slowly updates its belief about danger. That is how confidence is built. So, the real battle is not with grammar books or vocabulary lists. The real battle is happening inside your mind. You are not losing to English. You are losing to the fear of how others might react. Until you recognize that this is a psychological barrier and not a linguistic limitation, you will keep trying to fix the wrong problem. And when you keep fixing the wrong problem, no amount of practice will ever feel enough. The moment you shift your focus from trying to sound perfect to allowing yourself to be imperfect, everything begins to change. Because fluency is not born from perfection. It is born from permission. Permission to try. Permission to stumble. Permission to grow in public. The moment confidence breaks. Let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel was not bad at English. In fact, on paper, he was good. He passed exams comfortably. He understood grammar rules. He could write structured answers and even scored above average in language tests. If someone asked him to read something, he could read it clearly. If someone spoke in English slowly, he understood most of it. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. But Daniel had one silent fear: speaking. In his first year at university, he had to present a simple project in front of his class. He had prepared well. He knew the topic deeply. The night before the presentation, he practiced alone in his room and everything sounded smooth. He even felt a small wave of confidence. He thought maybe this time it would go well. The next day, when his name was called, he stood up and walked to the front. That is when it happened. His heartbeat suddenly became louder than his thoughts. His mouth felt dry. The first sentence came out slightly shaky. He mispronounced one word. It was not a big mistake. It was small, almost unnoticeable. But two students in the back exchanged a quick smile. That was enough. In that moment, Daniel's brain stopped focusing on the presentation and started focusing on survival. He became hyper-aware of every movement. He started monitoring his pronunciation. He began thinking about how he looked. His next sentence became slower. Then he forgot a word. A very simple word. His mind went blank for 3 seconds. 3 seconds felt like 30. After the presentation ended, no one said anything negative. The professor simply nodded and moved on. The world did not collapse. Nobody publicly insulted him. But inside Daniel's mind, a decision had already been made. He told himself, "I am not good at speaking English." That sentence quietly became part of his identity. After that day, he avoided raising his hand. When group discussions happened, he let others speak first. If someone asked him something in English, he switched to shorter answers. If he could choose between staying silent and risking another awkward moment, he chose silence. Not because he did not know English, but because he did not want to feel that exposure again. What Daniel did not realize was that the real damage was not the small mistake he made. The real damage was the meaning he attached to it. He interpreted a normal human error as proof of personal incompetence. And once the brain accepts that belief, it starts protecting it. Every future opportunity to speak felt risky. Every conversation felt like a test. Every pause felt like confirmation that he was not fluent enough. And slowly, his fear grew stronger than his ability. The tragedy is this. Daniel did not lack vocabulary. He lacked emotional safety. And that is what happens to so many people. One small awkward moment becomes a permanent label. One tiny embarrassment becomes a lifelong limitation. Not because they are incapable, but because they stopped giving themselves permission to try again without fear. The question is not whether you are Daniel. The real question is how many times you have let one small moment decide who you are. Why confidence comes after action. Here is the truth most people never realize. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you build by surviving uncomfortable moments. Daniel thought he needed to feel confident before speaking again. But that is not how the brain works. The brain builds confidence only after it experiences proof that the situation is safe. If you keep avoiding speaking, your brain keeps believing that speaking is dangerous. Silence becomes safety. And safety becomes habit. But the moment you speak despite fear and nothing terrible happens, your brain updates its belief. It slowly understands that embarrassment is not death. A pause is not humiliation. A small mistake is not a disaster. And that is when growth begins. Fluent speakers are not people who feel zero fear. They are people who decided that fear is not a stop sign. It is just a signal that they are growing. The shift is simple but powerful. Stop trying to sound perfect. Start trying to express one clear idea. Stop asking, "Will they judge me?" Start asking, "Did I communicate my point?" When your focus moves from performance to connection, pressure reduces. And when pressure reduces, words return. Your English does not need to be flawless to be effective. It just needs to be spoken. And every time you speak, even imperfectly, You are training your brain to choose courage over comfort. If you saw yourself in Daniel, I want you to understand something very clearly. You are not behind in life. You are not less intelligent. You are not incapable of speaking English. You just had a few moments that shook your confidence, and you allowed those moments to define you. But one moment cannot decide your future unless you let it. Your silence is not proof of weakness. It is proof that you were protecting yourself. And now it is time to protect your growth instead. The next time your heart beats fast before speaking, do not run from it. Recognize it. That feeling is not danger. That feeling is expansion. If you are done letting fear control your voice, comment below. I will speak anyway. Not when I am perfect. Not when I feel fully ready. But anyway. Like this video if it made you rethink your struggle. Share it with someone who thinks they are bad at English. Subscribe if you want to build real confidence, not fake motivation. Press the bell icon so you never miss the next step of this journey. We are not just learning English here. We are learning to stop shrinking ourselves. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.